If you think that you have all the financial factors in control towards your journey to financial independence and creating wealth, think again. There are 5 factors that are not in our control, and if they are on the positive side of us, they can really accelerate that journey, and on the negative side, they can bring that entire journey to full stop. Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. During our personal journey to financial independence, we encountered 5 financial factors, that we could not control. They were all external dependencies, and these factors impacted our journey towards financial independence, both positive and negative, and it continues to impact during our retirement years also. So I'm going to talk about what these factors are, how they have impacted us and continue to impact, and how you can manage the impact both positively and negatively. Before I do that, a quick introduction about myself. My name is Yogi, and my wife Seema and I, we both achieved financial independence and retired early. And as part of this retiring early years, we've been traveling the world, and that is what brings us to Tokyo. And as I keep saying in the other videos, and I would like to repeat that message, financial independence is a must for everybody. Retiring early is an option. We took that option. You may or may not decide, but hopefully the videos that we are making on this channel help you with accelerating and achieving financial independence at a faster pace. Anyways, back to the topic. So the 5 factors that are very important to understand, manage. So the first one is inflation. Inflation is when the prices of the goods and services rise year on year, or very few times, then when it also goes down, and it's called deflation then. And why does this happen? This happens when the demand is greater than the supply. It could be for small daily use items like milk, bread, eggs, or high value items like houses, cars, etc. The inflation after COVID, I would say, has been skyrocketing, and it's also because of the macroeconomic conditions where many of the Western economies decided to print money and give that money to their citizens. And when you give money to people, what happens is that they go and spend. And when they're spending, they create more demand for the products. So the demand rises. And when the demand rises, the prices of the goods and services also rise. And that's a reason that we are in high inflation environment right now. Now, what does this mean towards the journey to financial independence? So let's take 3 scenarios. Let's say that you are a 30-year-old and you have the desire to retire like we did at the age of 50 or before the age of 50. So let's take scenario 1 where there is 0 inflation for the next 20 years. Scenario 2, when there is 5% inflation for the next 20 years average. And scenario 3 is that there is 10% inflation over the next 20 years, so from 30 till the time you're 50. Now, I hope that the third scenario doesn't happen, and I don't think this first scenario will happen either, but these are just to illustrate and give you an example how the inflation impacts. So let's take an expenses, that your expenses, let's say, per year right now is 1 lakh rupees a year. And let's apply the 0% inflation on that expenses right now, 5% inflation and 10% inflation, and let's see what it results into over the next 20 years. So as you can see the results, there is a big impact. So the money that you need right now, in 20 years time, if there is a 10% inflation year on year, you will need a lot more money. Realistically, even if there is a 5% inflation year on year, you will need a lot more money to do that, have that same spending power that you have with that 1 lakh rupees right now. So this is the impact of inflation. And as you can see on the 0%, that same 1 lakh will be 1 lakh in 20 years time, which is an idealistic scenario, but unfortunately it doesn't happen in real life. So this is the impact of inflation, that your expenditure, you will have to calculate for the next 20 years. So the money that you will need in your total corpus by the time you retire should be based on the target expenses when you retire. So it has a big impact. And unfortunately, we can't control inflation. These are all the external factors, be it the housing market, be it the chip shortage in the cars that increase the prices of the cars, be it the government's printing money and that resulting into a lot of spending by people and therefore prices going high. So what you can do is, one is be prepared. So how do you prepare? Is you need to make sure that your calculations include a conservative or a higher inflation. The second is you need to make sure that your money is beating inflation wherever it is invested. So for example, if you've got your money stored at home, which I don't think you have, that money is having a negative value. So if there is a 10% inflation for the next 20 years, so your 1 lakh rupees lying at home will probably be almost 1/3 or less than the value that you will need in the 20 years. The next is if the money is lying in the bank. Again, the banks do not give enough interest rates to counter inflation. The third level is fixed deposits. So fixed deposits get closer to inflation, but they are still not there at the same inflationary point. So make sure that your investments are distributed in a way that they are countering the inflationary impact on your spending. Make sure that you're managing your lifestyle inflation, because many times year on year our expenditure increases and we blame it on the regular inflation. So we think that the prices have increased because of which our spending has increased. So distinguish between the regular inflation and distinguish in your lifestyle inflation. Most likely, when it comes to milk, bread, eggs, on those spending, inflation happens, but that inflation will have comparatively marginal impact on your overall spending on a 20 years time or a 10 years time. The big impact is entertainment, shopping, car, houses, and lifestyle. So managing that becomes a very important thing. To manage inflation is to make sure that you're not just investing, but your money starts making money for you. And that could be from two ways. One is that you increase your primary income. There are many people, they reached out to us on the video saying, hey, you both have a double income, so it was easier for you to catapult. I'm single income, how do I manage? And the answer to that is you have to make sure that you treat your career also as an investment, so that you're not just your money is, that is the invested money is beating inflation, but your career is catapulting itself so that it is more than beating inflation. The second point is linked to inflation, and that is the interest rates. Interest rates, again, we have no control of, but it has a positive and a negative impact on our journey. Now, interest rates are typically linked to inflation because when the inflation is high, the different reserve banks in the world, they increase the interest rates so that they make it difficult for companies, for people to borrow money to spend. So that's their measure to cool down the economy and to make sure that the inflation goes down. And that is also the reason that the interest rates nowadays are quite high. So that's why when you are going and buying a house, you are encountering anywhere between 8 to 10% interest. When you're buying a car, it's a double-digit interest that you have to pay for that. On the other hand, the interest rates in the bank are also high at the moment. So if you do a fixed deposit, you'll be getting a decent interest rate right now. So what can you do about it? One is that when the interest rates are high, if you're planning to buy a house, make sure that you evaluate it thoroughly. What we've seen by our experience is that typically the rentals do not increase at the same pace as the interest rates do. So for example, if right now you are targeting a 1 crore property to buy within 8% interest, so you'll have to pay 8 lakh rupees on annual basis on an interest. Check for that same property. If you would have taken that property on rent, how much rental does that property require. If that property you can get for an annually 4 lakhs or 5 lakhs rent, then it could still be a better deal for you, because you're saving money in two ways. One is that because when you are buying that property, you may be getting 80% of the loan, but 20% is still your money. That 20% you can invest it and get returns from that, and that 80% you're definitely saving that 8 lakh that you can do from putting it on rent. And keep in mind, especially on the house front, again, it's not just that 8 lakhs. There are a lot of other costs that I've talked in another video of mine where I compare buying versus renting. So when the interest rates are high, it's good to evaluate that very well. The third factor is, again, linked to this, is the returns from your investments. Now, typically what happens is when the inflation goes up, the interest rates go up, because that's the market, or the Reserve Bank's trying to cool down the market. And when the interest rates go up, that means it becomes difficult for the companies to borrow money. So the returns on the investments also cool down. The great thing of investments, like we've spoken in many of our videos, is there are so many types of investments. One investment is just by putting money in the bank and just earning your regular interest on that. Very secure, but as I mentioned, it doesn't beat inflation. But the other extreme is that you can 10x your money probably by buying a crypto at a penny or some very cheap number, and it goes 10 to 20 times, or a startup. But then your risk profile is also increasing dramatically. And these things are not in your control. So what can you do about it? Simple: diversify. And that's what we've also done. And our diversification strategy, by investing in real estate, investing in gold, investing in mutual funds, investing in different currencies, has helped us. Mathematically, let's say you have 100 rupees and and again, this is an extreme example, but let's say you put 1 rupee each in all the different assets. And let's say 3 of those assets become defunct. So that means it leaves you 97 rupees. But on the other hand, let's say one of that assets becomes 10x. So if that is the case, you are left with 109 rupees, with all of them remaining flat. That's the beauty of diversification, that when it comes to those 10x kind of investments, they catapult your investments. And if you're diversified, including some investments that go down to zero, that has a lower impact. And if you would have done that same 100 rupees in one investment, it would have probably on a 10x created 1000, but on a negative, it would have created 0. So you want to be in a situation where you don't end up with 0, but maybe 97, but maybe on the positive side, you're only doing 110 rather than 1000. So diversify. That will help you manage this rate of return on the investments. And personally, based on our own experience, on a long run, as they say, when in doubt, zoom out. On a long run, what you will see is that those investments will always beat inflation if you've diversified, and especially with mutual funds, especially with debt and all this mixed portfolio together, you will always be in a better off position. The next one is emergencies. Again, we can't control about things that happen around us, and as they say, shit happens. And that can happen that you may lose your job. Someone in your family may lose your job. There is a big health scare. There is any other unexpected funds that is needed for family and friends. And that is also that we've gone through, Seema and I, over the last many decades. We had our own emergencies. And sometimes we stumbled and learned. Sometimes because of the learning, we had what we call the emergency fund. So that is what you should do. Make sure that you have an emergency fund, as they say, for that rainy day, that if something bad happens. As I've spoken in many of the other videos, you should have a minimum of 6 months of your expenses as emergency fund, with up to around 24 months, all depending on how far off are you from your target retirement age. Ideally, my simple formula is take 24 minus it with your years to your target retirement. So if you're 40 years old and you still have your target retirement is 50, so you still have 10 years to go. So 24 minus 10, so you should have 14 months of your emergency fund. So you build that progressively. So that emergency fund should hopefully help you in those rainy days when there is a job loss or there is some other medical or any other form of emergency. The last one is how long we are going to live. Now, as they say, death and taxes are the only certainties in life. So yes, we will all probably leave this beautiful planet someday, but how long will it take? We don't know. And why it is important in the journey to financial independence, because you have to plan. If you're planning to retire at a regular age or retiring early, you have to plan that you make sure that your financial corpus that you're building can last or outlast you. Now, in Seema and my case, what we are doing is that we are planning for a life expectancy as a worst case scenario, probably best case scenario for us in one way, which is much more than anyone else in our family has ever lived. So we are planning for a 95-year age profile. So that means we've got around 45 years to go. So making sure that our funds last that long. Now what happens is that if you draw two simulations, let's say one is that we are planning till the age of 95. The other is that we planned only till the age of 85. Now, what you will see is that if we are only planned till 85, the money will run out somewhere. While when we plan till 95, and if we live till probably 85, then we leave behind money. So it's a happy problem to have, that you leave behind money rather than run out of money. So planning that becomes important. So if you are at the age of 30 right now, so first step you should do is plan your expenses by having your inflation added to that for the target retirement age. So that's the action number one, so that you can see that, okay, if this is your current expenses, you will need from 30, let's say target retirement age is 50, you will need that amount of expenses for that age. The second is that from that expenses, then you apply that how much should be a withdrawal rate on that. I've done another video on that, or a couple of videos where I talk about this 4% rule, 3%. I always say that 4% is in the calculations are for 30 years for a lifespan. So make sure that you are calculating based on a much lower withdrawal rate that takes care from that age of 50 till the age of 95 or whatever the target life expectancy that you have. So that will help you to at least manage from the inflation to the age. Make sure that you have an emergency fund. Make sure that your investments are diversified enough that the rate of return is not impacted, that if there is a big drop in one asset, then the others are balancing that. So in summary, the inflation, the interest rates in the market, the rate of return on your investments, the emergencies, and the age or how long we live, these are not in our control. But we can plan to make sure that we can minimize the impact and even maximize our total corpus and accelerate the journey. So I hope that this video helped you give some new insight into some of these levers, and I hope it also helped you to get some pointers on how to manage it. If you did find the video useful, please do like and subscribe, and please do comment and share your thoughts. Would love to get into a dialogue. Till the next video, till the next topic, and till the next location, goodbye from me. Bye-bye.